The Guns on Pegs podcast is brought to you by iTap Group. Hello and welcome to the Guns on Pegs podcast. My name's George Brown.
My name's Avian.
It's Jake.
And it is Sam in sunny Devon.
Sunny Devon.
Sunny
Makes
Devon.
a change, doesn't it?
It's been sunny for a week.
A whole week.
No rain.
Don't scare it. There's always the full spring and second winter to come if we're not careful.
I don't even care. Just have the sun shining was wonderful.
Has the ground actually dried out at all?
A little bit, to be fair. We've had some nice sunny, windy days. The daylight's getting more and more each day as well, so it's all helping.
Yeah, very good. And how long before you're complaining about drought?
Probably a fortnight. There'll be a hosepipe ban. And we'll be going, I wish I had some rain to wash in this really expensive fertilizer. Thanks, Donald.
Because that's gone up 60%, hasn't it? 65%, along with your free diesel.
Yeah.
That's gone up as well.
Yeah, along with the free diesel and the heating oil and every input into a farm.
It's amazing how it goes up when it's actually in a tank in Northamptonshire rather than on a boat on its way from the Straits of Hormuz. Funny that.
Bizarre,
I'm sure when this is all over, it'll come down just as quickly.
Yeah, okay, mate.
I came across, chaps, with the view of the weather at the moment, I'm trying to find it here. I came across a word that apparently was only recorded as being used once back in the 1700s. And I think, because I only heard it in passing, but I think it was opacity, and it was the sense of warm sun on your back in the winter.
How nice.
And apparently there was only ever one recorded use of it, but I think that one needs to be brought back. That was quite good,
Yeah.
I thought.
That's a very good word. I'm adding that to the collection. Thank you for that.
That's all right.
Right, let's have a drink. Jake, kick us off. How are you doing? Well, first of all, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
You boys.
Tired. I know we're going to talk about it in a bit there, George, but last night was a good night. Long. But to answer your question, what's out I'm drinking, on the table, we had little snifters of courtesy from Basque, the Damson gin from Fox Denton, and 50 mils. Everyone had one in front. I think we had quite a few of these last night, didn't we, George? And
one or two.
One or two. But equally, then I've got something a little bit more refreshing and needed, to be honest. And we're going to speak about the Zoida update shortly. So in complete kind of like honor of Avian's wonders that he's created, stopped off at the village shop, walked in there and thought, I'm going to get myself an Aspel, but not just any old Aspel, the Premier Crew Aspel.
The fancy stuff.
Somebody's had a pay rise.
Well, it's 6.8%. And chaps, I think after that it's floor. So
Well, let's try and get through this.
Yeah, we need to recognise Jake's dedication to the cause here, because last night he was in London for the Eat Game Awards, and you left fairly late in the evening. So what time did you get home?
I got home 1:30 this morning.
Yeah, and then what time did you have to get up to go and do unspeakable things to horses?
I was up at 10 to 5 to be at work for 5:30 this morning. And
nice.
then, we put in a fair shift at work today and finished work at 5 this evening and come home. And we're doing this with you lads now. So it's been a hell of a 48 hours.
I'll bet it has.
It reminds your attitude, Jake, reminds me of when I lived in a flat up in Hackney. There was a very nice chap who lived downstairs from us, a barrister, and it was a bit of a party flat. And I had a note through the door one time, which I lost in the move, and I wish I'd have kept it and framed it. But there was a wonderful paragraph towards the end where he just said, "Whilst all of us in Independent Place from time to time enjoy a party, you, sir, are relentless."
Oh, you can even hear the anger, the passive aggression behind it there, can't you?
I think he despaired of us when my roommate and I, to try and apologise, we decided we'd buy him a rather nice bottle of claret and take it round to him. The problem was, on the way home from the wine from Brown Brothers buying it, we got shit-faced. And he discovered us on our hands and knees trying to force said bottle of claret through his letterbox. So I think any good we tried to do was immediately undone, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Golly. Right, Sam, what have you got?
I have got, so I think I'm flying the flag for the Cornish a little too much recently, but I have got a Korev, which is a Cornish lager, which is very nice, easy summer drinking lager, which is just me getting excited about the sun coming out again. But I've also got a little impulse purchase that I believe was Avian's fault at 1 o'clock last Friday morning. I've got a whiskey smoker.
Good lad.
So I've got some Lag, which is a fairly new distillery on the Isle of Arran, and I've got some cherry wood chips, which I'm now going to set fire to. I'm doing a true Jake Wolf here and bringing visual things to an audio medium.
Fine tradition. Fine tradition.
You can hear fire.
Does the flamethrower come with crikey? Does the flamethrower come with the kit?
No, this is used for disbudding calves when it's not being used to make tasty cocktails.
I'm actually quite glad that our listeners can't see this, because this is quite alarming. I think we're seeing the firebug in you.
Yes.
But look at that, gentlemen. Smoking a glass.
That's very good.
It is good.
What was that cherry chip you got with it?
That's cherry chips. I got a cherry, apple, oak, and something else.
That's almost a fruit salad, isn't it?
It is almost. It's one of my 5 a day.
His drink's on fire. Fantastic.
Cheers, boys.
Very good.
How is it, Sam?
Yeah, I think we can all agree my cocktail making skills need a little bit of work. But I think that you get the cherry from the first sip probably more through the nose than you do through the mouth, even though I'm doing it wrong. It tastes nice. It doesn't taste worse.
It looks great. It looks great.
Yeah,
it
it
looks
does.
great on
Very
podcast.
impressive. Yeah. Avian, what have you got?
Well, I've been very lucky this week. I've been sent something to try. I think we've talked about my mate Toby before. He's the chap with the best job in the world. He's the shotgun coach, whiskey judge, and cigar aficionado. Well, he's stretched his wings a little further now, and he's come up with his own alcohol-free drink and mixer. It's gone under the name Toby & Co. So if you pop online and have a look, it's absolutely beautiful. I'll just show the chaps here. It's sort of very floral looking and art deco. And
the branding is I absolutely love the branding. It's so good. That is my style.
Absolutely super. So he's gone for this drink, and he's saying it's inspired by global travels. So it's made with country garden botanicals, alpine and Mediterranean herbs, green tea extract with L-theanine, neotropic mushrooms and Celtic sea salt to deliver a refreshing, versatile drink that supports cognitive function, well-being and hydration. And it's actually really good. Really, really good. So clearly I'm drinking it with vodka. Oh, that is really very nice. Really good. That's like a quite sweet, but it's not sweetened, and a really interesting depth of flavour. I think it's definitely worth a go. And if nothing else, it's definitely a bit of bar candy, isn't it?
Oh, it's the branding is so beautiful, and you can even buy sort of little gift boxes of mixers. It's very cool.
Yes.
Can you buy the glasses? I'm just having a look to see if the glasses aren't just imagery.
I think they're imagery at the moment, but knowing Toby, they're definitely going to be a work in progress.
They're really.
So I will nudge him and find out if they're available. But I think just everything on there is just, that's very us, isn't it? Very nice.
Yeah, very lovely. Good stuff. Yeah, really cool. So you got that with vodka?
Yes, I've got that with vodka. It's the very last drop I've got, so I must buy another bottle. Another chap I met, Dimas. He's a Ukrainian vodka maker. It's a triple grain vodka. It's so smooth, so pure. It really is a cracking vodka. And every bottle he sells, they donate £1 towards first aid kits for the chaps in Ukraine. So not only is it a belter, but it's also doing a bit of good as well. So
it's good. Lovely stuff.
It's very good.
Well, top marks for originality.
Drinking to save the world, Avian. Well done.
Single-handed.
Yeah, well, I'm not made of such robust stuff as Jake, and I was sort of casting about for a drink to have this evening, this afternoon, thinking about what I wanted, and I looked at the whiskey collection, and I looked at the beers in the fridge, and I looked in the wine rack, and all of them filled me with a sense of foreboding and dread. So I'm
one of those long hangovers, is it?
Well, I'm not particular hangover, just sort of fatigue, I think. So I'm not having an alcoholic drink. I've gone to a place of childhood comfort, and I've got a big pint glass of Ribena.
Fantastic.
Which is very comforting and refreshing, and just gives me that little bit of sugar that I think I need just to give me a bit of an uplift. And yeah.
Is it hot or cold, George? Hot or cold Ribena?
It is cold Ribena. A hot Ribena is an excellent thing. But no, cold on this occasion. But in my defense, not that I feel I need to defend Ribena, but I do have a family connection to Ribena, because my uncle and my grandfather before him grew blackcurrants for Ribena, and have done for a really long time. Up in Norfolk, and I've worked on the back of the blackcurrant harvester and all that sort of thing. So it does have a very special place in my family's history.
And where are you on the dilution scale? Are you weak or are you strong?
I do vary my dilution depending on mood. At the moment, we're fairly middle of the road, but in the summer,
Yes.
A very thin Ribena can be excellent. When it's really cold. But generally middle of the road. It's supposed to be something insane, like 1 to 5 or something like that. I think it says on the bottle.
Yeah, I think that's a Ribena marketing plan, isn't it? You get
correct.
A bottle
yes, I
quickly.
mean you need a spoon.
Use more Ribena, yeah.
Yes, I doubt it's recommended by the British Dental Association to have it at 5 to 1, is it?
But no. The chaps, I can only eat it strong. If you have it weak, it is. I don't think it tastes anything like it should do. It's got to be. You've got to have a quarter inch at the bottom of a pint glass, at least, if not half an inch, and then it's got to be thick so you can stand your pen in it, and it will just stand up. I love it, but otherwise, there's no point having a Ribena. You might as well just go and have an apple and black currant from Tesco's. If you're having Ribena, it's a treat. It was always a treat in our house, and it still is very much now. With Mum, she will still, whether she's ill or she's just enjoying a drink in the evening. She'll have a Cinzano there.
Cinzano and Ribena.
Slice of lemon.
Cinzano.
Ribena.
My God.
Lots of ice. And Ribena on top. And that's Mum's go-to kind of drink. So, yeah, but it has to be Ribena. No other brand
will suffice.
Is suitable.
Well, I suppose you're all up that East Coast, aren't you? I mean, George, if you have a couple of sups from it, I'm sure you'd be able to shoehorn in a vodka or two, wouldn't you?
Well, at university, we did used to have gin and Ribena, which is quite a good drink. But I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to be a good boy and not have it. But let me tell you about being on the back of the blackcurrant harvester. So if you're not familiar with how blackcurrants are harvested, the machine basically goes over the top of the row and then just shakes the bushes like crazy. And everything that is on the bush falls off the bush onto a sort of conveyor belt, and then everything comes out the back of the conveyor belt into trays. And I expect they're probably a bit more modern and sophisticated than they were when I was doing it. But when I was on the back of the machine, my job was to lift the tray up, turn around and tip it into the ton-sized box behind. And while the tray was filling, one was supposed to try and remove all of the leaves and twigs and, importantly, snails from the box before tipping it into the bigger tub behind. Because I was told, and I've never known whether this was just somebody winding me up, that they don't really bother cleaning it once it gets to the factory. They just tip the box in the machine and squish it. So in our house, for the last 30 years or so, Ribena has been known as snail juice, because I can tell you I did not get all the snails out.
So you saying when George was on the harvester that Ribena couldn't be advertised as vegetarian
I would be amazed if it could be
because of snail
advertised as
content?
yeah, I think there's a lot of snails in your Ribena even to this day. Please don't sue me, Ribena.
I would imagine so. I know when we used to make the slow gin, you do your very best to meticulously pick through, but by the time you tip them all in and put the gin in with them, then there are a lot of very, very drunk but soon to be dead snails bobbing around on the surface. I think I read somewhere that there was an issue in the States particularly, but I think it does happen over here, where when they're lifting potatoes for harvest, they go through a stone riddle. And when they go to the factory, there's a machine that checks the density, that rejects stones and keeps potatoes. But it turns out that golf range balls are the same density as potatoes. And it has been noted that they go through the slicing machine really quite well because they're only just a solid rubber core. And there is no way of filtering these things out. So they just go through the process and are allowed under, certain foods are allowed a certain grammage of bee wing and all this sort of stuff. So golf balls are accepted as an inclusion in potato chips because they haven't worked out a way to get rid of them. And nobody seems to notice.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to investigate that because another thing that my uncle grows is spuds for McCain and McDonald's.
Is he near a golf range?
No, but he'll definitely, if that is a thing, he'll definitely know about it. One of the great advantages of that is every time he comes to see us, we're sort of excited to see him, but what we're most excited about is getting 10 kilo sack of reject spuds from McCain because
Brilliant.
My grandmother used to, or my great grandmother used to refer to them as self-mashing because they are so floury, so fluffy that if you're trying to make roasties, for example, and you sort of turn your back and sneeze, by the time you look back, they've sort of gone beyond that kind of not quite cooked stage. It's perfect for fluffing up and roasting and turned into sort of instant mash. So yeah, they're rather good.
So if the golf balls go through unnoticed, then is it the case that we're eating the wrong things or we're playing golf with the wrong things?
So what? Perhaps if we played golf with potatoes, it'd probably improve most people's game. I don't know, because there's the other one, isn't there? That McDonald's chips, they insist on a certain variety of potato where they grow in the States that requires a terribly aggressive pesticide spray. And where it's grown, when they spray it, everybody has to stay indoors for several days.
Gosh, I didn't know
But they choose
that.
these potatoes because I think it's the size of the potato and the shape of them. They produce consistent sized chips. The world's gone mad, quite frankly, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, these spuds that my uncle brings us, they are the size of your head. They are absolutely enormous.
That's a big spud.
Yeah.
My head is, can you?
Yeah. I'm thinking the size of my cranium.
Yeah, we always struggle in the hat shop, don't we? One size fits all, except Avian and Jake.
Yeah, quite right. But
right. Well, listen, Avian, we need a cider update before we go any further.
Cider update. We are in bottles, gentlemen.
Hey.
So, a big shout out to Tom Bray down at Hayward Cider Farm. He has the patience of a saint. I turned up a couple of weeks back with the fermented apple juice. We let it sit for 2 or 3 weeks to let all the sediment run out. And then we painstakingly siphoned it all off. We've got 5 versions to go in for the competition at the Royal Cornwall Show. And the rest of it, we decided in our infinite wisdom to mix it all up in a bucket and bottle it. So I've got a few dozen little litre glass bottles, which I'm hoping to tuck away and bring them out for some of the Guns on Pegs shooting days. So
Lovely.
We'll hopefully have some labels by then. I think, where do we go with that? Was it Orchard of the Garter, I think was the suggestion.
Orchard of the Garter, and I've got some label artwork suggestions from listeners to forward on to you, which I shall dig out from the depths of my inbox and get over to you.
Then I've got several dozen of the 1 litre, 2 litre plastic jerry cans. And I've just had some packing boxes arrive for those. So, gentlemen, watch out for the DPD man. He could be bringing you all sorts of horribleness in a bucket fairly shortly. So for our next episode, I aim to have them with you. So what's that you're drinking? Spittoons at the ready will just be Guns on Pegs, Orchard of the Garter, Zoider.
Do we have to drink the
Fantastic.
entire 2 litres
Yes.
on our next recording?
Yes.
Wicked.
That's going to be a long recording.
We won't do video on that one, shall we?
Hell
That's
no. I don't know if Tom's blowing smoke up my bum or not, but he has said, actually, that's not bad, which I take as high praise from a former gold medal winner and professional cider maker. But I think, in fairness, we have passed the first test, which is mostly not toxic.
Well, that's very good, but it's quite gratifying to hear that, as you say, a former gold medal winner, professional cider maker uses phrases like "let's just put it all in a bucket and mix it up." I think that gives us all hope, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a professional standard, definitely.
Very good. Well, I'm looking forward to that a lot. Now, before we get into the rest of the things we want to talk about, Avian, you've been off doing exciting snipe-related things.
Yes, I've had an absolute ball. So Wednesday evening, I had a call from Joe at GWCT. They've got a project running. It's a new appeal they've launched. So they're trying to find out what's happening to all the snipe. So they started the program this time last year. And they've gone out, they've got 3 locations. There's a couple in Ireland, a couple up on the estates in Scotland near Fife. And also this site down on the Lizard near Coverack in Cornwall. So I went down and joined Andrew Hoodless and Blevin Thomas. Andrew's the head of something very important in wetlands. I can't remember right now, over at GWCT. And he was the chap who did the full study on woodcock,
Yes.
which I think has been running 30 years now. And they've finally got the technology to a point where they can put these solar-powered tracking tags on snipe,
Wow.
which is
Okay.
phenomenal.
And just give us a little bit of the context of it, though. But give us a bit of the context. Why are they doing the study?
So there seems to be sort of a long-term decline in snipe numbers, and that seems to be across Europe. So and across the range. And I think they're really just trying to establish where are the snipe going. I mean, their first year's tagging, they've had birds turn up in Iceland, at the Kola Peninsula in Russia,
Wow.
and all across Europe. So, whilst quite a few of the birds do remain in the UK, I think they've chosen the 3 sites being low incidence of local breeding, but they're seeing them turn up across the moors and what have you in the north of England into Scotland. But it's interesting just how many birds are doing these enormous migrations, and obviously trying to track the age and sex of the birds that are coming back in. And it was absolutely fascinating. I never thought sploshing around in the absolutely pitch dark with a head torch and a fishing net would be quite so exciting. It was.
It sounds like good sport.
How easy are they to catch?
It was amazing. So they've got 2 methods that they use. So they'd spent a lot of time down on Mickey Tyler's farm at Lanarth. He's been supporting this project pretty much since its inception. He runs a little private woodcock shoot down there, and he's just absolutely passionate about wading birds, woodcock, and the snipe there. And he's been working with Andrew for 10 or 15 years now, just gathering data on the woodcock. And they've now taken the plunge and migrated that over to work with the snipe as well. So we went out, they've been sort of scoping out the fields and working out where the birds are coming. And the birds will come in just as it turns dark, and they'll plop down in a field, usually a field that's got a nice wet splash in it somewhere, and they'll just spend the night fossicking around and feeding, and then they'll be off in the morning. So we went down about 5 o'clock, and they set out 3 lines, about 30-meter lengths of double height mist nets, and they sort of set them to where they thought the wind was, because apparently the birds will come in.
So it's more like snipe trawling than it is individual.
No,
netting.
not at all. No, it was brilliant, because you've got to set your nets out. So the nets have to be set out because the birds will come into the wind and settle down. and then they'll spend their time as they move around the feeding grounds. They'll stay facing into the wind, so if they're startled, they get that immediate lift. You know, the classic snipe, so they can jump up and shoot off. So they have to try and get these nets where they think the snipe are going to come in to feed, and in the right direction, so that it'll pick them up as they drop in.
Fascinating, because
it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Because Owen Williams, who's been on the podcast before, he's a big woodcock ringer, and they creep up on them with a lamp, and then sort of jump.
Exactly
on them.
Yeah. That was the second method. We went through this, it must have been 30, 40 acre wetland field, and we had thermals, and Andrew had the fishing net and a high intensity torch. And when we pick them up in the thermal, he'll sort of try and go round them up the wind. So he gets in front of them, and then he lamps them in, dazzles them with the torch, and then drops this long-handled, very delicate but long-handled sort of fishing landing net on them.
Yeah.
And we had quite a few false calls. They were a bit jittery, but we managed to catch one in the mist nets, and that one was big enough to take the tag. And these tags, they're about 2.5 grams in weight.
Gosh, that's tiny, isn't it?
It's tiny. I mean, the birds themselves are only sort of 100 to 120 grams. They'll get a little bit bigger this time of year as they're packing on fat to go off and do their migration. But the calculation they do is that the tag must be no more than 3% of the body weight. So obviously they're making sure that as they do their migration, perhaps their weight comes down. The tag isn't going to materially interfere with the well-being of the bird. And they're amazing. They're about as big as your thumbnail, with like a foot of very fine wire aerial on the back. They're solar powered, and they have like these little silicon rubber bands that go under the legs, and it sits on the small of the back, on the back of the pelvis.
Gosh.
And just watching the two of them just handling these wild snipe under torchlight, and I was amazed at how docile snipe and apparently woodcock are very similar, how docile they are when you pick them up. I mean, I know I've had to take a jackdaw out of a chimney before, and that's handle a cat on crack, isn't it? But these were, it was brilliant. I loved it. It was brilliant.
Do you think? And I mean, you'll probably find more results as it goes on, but habitat changes. And I only say that because where I am, I've had fields that have been poached up by cattle, and I've seen good numbers of snipe in them.
Yeah.
As we've been encouraged by government bodies to maybe take cattle off fields earlier before we go into the winter, and put them on later into the spring, those fields, you don't end up with that poaching, and actually you don't see as many snipe or any snipe, as the case may be. So do you think that, I mean, changes in farming practices are going to have a big impact on that, I suppose, aren't they?
Yeah, so that was very much Andrew's view, although it doesn't seem to be that there's this is what's causing the decline. It seems to be a range of things, of which changes in farming practice is part of it. And I think he was really saying that it's as farming tidies up, it causes problems, because the snipe like those slightly neglected, wet, boggy bits of the corner of rough grass fields,
rushy,
but where the grass isn't so high. Yeah, a bit sort of rushy, a bit, grazed in areas, but not uniform. But it needs those sort of squishy splashes to hold the snipe and hold the worms and invertebrates and other bits they feed on. But I mean, the project's running now. Go on the GWCT website and have a look. They want to try and keep it running for 4 or 5 years to get enough data to start building the picture in the same way they did with the woodcock. But I mean, these tags, they're 1,700 quid each.
Blimey.
So they've only got the resources to tag 20 this year, 20 last year, and 20 next year is the plan. Which, out of the number of snipe, I did say to him, what happens if it flies into a window? And he said, well, yeah, that'll happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if you go online, 20 quid, we'll buy some rings for the legs, up to whatever you can afford. I did ask him that they're hoping, a bit like with the woodcock and with the BTO project on the cuckoos, to have a live tracking website.
Oh, that's cool.
which I thought would be very, very cool. And I did ask them if they were afraid that we might end up, if the public get to name them, too many Snipey McSnipe faces running around.
Did you see that? Just on a related note, did you see that story of a 30-year-old curlew that had been ringed in the New Forest? GWCT ringing.
Yes, I spotted that today. Yes,
unbelievable.
That's cool.
30-year-old.
Yeah.
And he was saying, with the snipe, they tend to live 3 to 5 years, but some of them, outliers they've ringed are sort of into their teens. But yeah, I mean, a 30-year-old curlew is quite something, isn't it?
Is there any guidance for listeners on the extremely slim chance that they maybe are out and bag one of these snipe?
Yes, absolutely.
About what to do with its little collar?
I mean, at 1,700 quid, if you've shot one and it's still in one piece, I'm sure Andrew would like it back.
Yeah,
please, thank you very much. But no, definitely on that point, and I think it's important with any wild bird shooting we're doing. If you do shoot something that has an identification ring on it, then there's a website the BTO run where you can just go on and just give them the ring number, where you found it, location, time of day, that sort of thing. And that's the sort of data that just builds the picture on where these animals are moving.
Yeah.
And helps us obviously protect them and look
that's
after them.
any ringed bird or tagged bird.
Yes.
Yeah. The Americans get very excited if they shoot a ringed duck.
Yes.
They get very excited about it.
I think there are rewards on there in the States.
I don't think there is. I think it's just, quite cool for you to be able to phone Ducks Unlimited and say that you've got a ring number.
You've snagged a shoveler.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very cool. Very cool. I'm quite jealous. Now, as we've already hinted at, Jake and I were out last night with a number of other members of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, or Garters, I should say, which was very good fun. Jake, do you want to give us a little post-match analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the first time I've ever been. And going into London is very much a privilege, and I'm a bit like a rabbit in headlights. I kind of
like a snipe in the torch beam.
A snipe in the torch beam, absolutely. There we go. And it was one of those where planned my routes and then planned it again and then planned it again. And anyway, got safely into London. Wasn't like phone jacked because I walked out of Warren Street train station to go to the pub where we were meeting beforehand, and I had my phone out and I'm there like walking around watching the blue triangle, like, oh, walk this way, and then carried on and gripping my phone because I thought I was going to get mugged. Couldn't have been anything further from the truth. It was a wonderful part of London. We had a wonderful few drinks, like George just said. It was great to meet up with some other members of the Most Noble Order of the Garters. We did a ceremony, didn't we? And we actually
handed one member.
I saw that. There's a little clip on Faceache for that, isn't there? The Garter handover.
That's exactly it. So that was pretty cool. I mean, you guys were there as well, and it was a proper Guns on Pegs table. But obviously, it was an awards evening. It was to celebrate game and everything that goes on within the culinary side of this industry, celebrating the community, and then from that it was.
Yeah, don't look so smug. Right,
oh,
I've got to step in here because.
Please.
Look, we've got a bit of a confession to make because we were a bit silly. And actually, I'm going to point the finger of blame at your co-host, Avian, Gemma, who came up with this game. It's a bit like bingo. And the game was that we would all choose one word that we thought would be the most used word in the speeches over the course of the evening. And in the end, Jake won with community. We got some quite funny looks because we would there'd be sort of little sporadic bursts
you weren't shouting house, were you? Or line and house?
No, but there was sort of cheering at random moments in people's speeches where it didn't seem at all appropriate. So it was very good fun.
I remember Alan Hansen would say, at the first set of awards, and Alan Hansen, sorry, you know who I mean. And
Henson.
His brother.
Wasn't he a football pundit?
definitely wasn't Alan Hansen. It was Alan Henson. Sorry. And
No, it wasn't him either.
Was it Adam? Adam.
It was Jim Hendricks. And but in all seriousness, he was there giving a very kind of like important talk. And I think I was up to 11 communities. And George looked across the table and he was like, "And you've done it again." And I cheered at this moment where we should not have cheered. We knew that table 9 was probably the naughty table from the 25 tables in the room. But I mean, we had a wicked evening and it was a lot of fun, our table. And we got to see and meet people we'd not met before, friends of the podcast, previous guests with Chris and George, and so it was really, really cool. But I think it's fair to say, George, we should actually say that you guys, Guns on Pegs, sponsored one of the categories, didn't they?
Well, yeah, we Guns on Pegs has sponsored the Best Game Influencer / Educator category for a number of years now. I think since its inception, actually.
Right.
So that's an ongoing thing, which is great. So that category was won by Chris Marnie from Game for Anything, who I hadn't really come across, more through my fault than anything else. And I think, having had a look at his website, I think we should probably have him on at some point, which is rather good. And then of course, former podcast guests Hugo Campbell Hill, aka the Game Glutton, and Kayat Bryn were both up for the Champion of Champions award, and neither of them won it, which is
they won in spirit. So going back to this game of bingo, did you have to take a drink every time your word was mentioned?
No,
that would have been a good idea.
God, but
well, no, I don't think it would, because I definitely wouldn't have made it to work at 5:30 this morning. However,
what the other words, we know that Jake won with community. Did anyone have game?
No, we banned Eat Game Awards Champion.
Yeah.
So it had to be, sustainability. I thought I was onto a winner with sustainability when it was about the third word said in the first speech. I thought, yes, I'm going to win here. But I think I finished on 3. There were some others, weren't there? Celebrate.
I'm trying to think. Yes, celebrate. What was Chris's one?
I can't remember.
Damn it, I can't remember. Anyway, the deal was that whoever was winning at the point where the Guns on Pegs representative had to go on stage and give the prize, up you go. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to go and win it. And then at that point, Chris looks, he goes, "Sorry, you haven't got a Guns on Pegs tie on?" And just gets up. And I would never have got up. You've got the owner of Guns on Pegs there. It's like, it was his gig, his awards to give and stuff. But it was just that kind of, "Sorry, mate, no, haven't got a Guns on Pegs tie on." So
I think for next year, if you're doing and this is for anybody who's having to sit through those interminable meetings in boardrooms, we used to play when we used to do a lot of work with the austere insurance company Cornhill up in the city, and we'd have to sit there with their marketing department, and they would always have an hour-long meeting and twat along, and we used to have to try and get in as many words as possible. And the topic was set before we went into the meeting, and it was things like ABBA song titles or Formula One racing tracks, and that's always good fun.
Very good, very good. So yes, that was a lovely evening, and just it was, it's always great to see that it's a really busy event. A lot of people there. Obviously, we ate mountains of game, so it was all fantastic. But listen, chaps, I think we need to have a bit of a serious conversation. Obviously not too serious, but it has been quite a busy week in terms of sort of government announcements related to shooting, which is never normally good news. So Avian, you've been sort of keeping an eye on all of it and sort of trying to work out what's been going on and what it all means. Can you give us a bit of a quick primer on the different announcements that have been made?
Yes, I'll do my best, because it's quite dense, and I don't pretend to know exactly what's happening on. But broadly speaking, there was a consultation went out from the government last year They're trying to build this new land use framework. And I think that the nub of the crux of that is basically how the country uses the land available to it, whether that be for agriculture, for building, for industry, for all the different matters. And basically, I think underlying it is trying to have a better overview and of how the land is used and to bring it all together. Now, part of that obviously is the environmental side, and where this directly comes at shooting is under the licensing of game bird release, which has obviously been included in the special protection areas for a couple of years now. So it affects I think it's the GL54 license.
Yes, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
Releasing game birds. So straight away in England, they've added another 5 special protection areas, and they are looking at a further consultation to consider the licensing of game bird release across England as a whole. And I think Wales are potentially a little more going down that line.
Yes. So the first, I think it was the Natural England announcement that they're going to be, extra tight on the granting of licenses around these SPAs this year. And that, they've said that certain areas are definitely not going to get them. They're worried. I think in Brecklands, for example, they're particularly worried about AI, avian influenza, jumping from waterfowl to released game birds to larks. I think woodlarks. Yes.
Yeah,
woodlarks. Yeah.
So there's that. That's sort of not that. I mean, it's obviously terrible news for anybody running and shoot in any of those areas, but it's not sort of a sort of step change in things that have been done. But then something that's been sort of bubbling under the surface for a little while is in Wales, there's been a sort of ongoing process around the licensing of game bird releases outside of those special protection areas. And earlier this week, Hugh Iranka-Davies, who's the Deputy First Minister and Environment Johnny for the Welsh government, has announced a call for evidence. And, they say that it remains their policy intention to move towards a more regulated and sustainable system for managing game bird releases. So there's going to be a call for evidence, I guess, around the impact of game bird releasing in its various guises. So that is, a rather more concrete, I suppose, change. And then, yes, as you say, Avian, the land use framework, which, in many ways, a lot of the sort of quite heated debates that are had in the countryside are mainly around sort of conflicting views as to what land is for and what purposes it should be put for. So in some ways, the existence of some sort of overarching guiding strategy is not a terrible thing to have. It sort of makes a certain amount of sense.
And I agree with you, George. I think if you look at the NFU's view on it, they're cautiously positive about the elements that relate to farming.
Yes. I mean, there's I think with all of these things, there's always something that you can find in them that's, you wouldn't agree with necessarily. But I think the bit that has got the shooting world, or certain sections of the shooting world running around with their hair on fire, is a bit that is specifically related to shooting. And there's this again, it's so what the upshot of it is, the sort of final bit of that section says, we will work with the sector and other stakeholder groups to explore wider measures such as licensing and any associated conditions for recreational game bird shooting and release, going beyond current approaches which only apply on or near European protected sites. This will begin with evidence gathering, and any proposed changes will be subject to public consultation. Now, so that sounds like a move in the direction that Wales is going as well.
Yes.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that means, a total ban on game bird releasing or any of this sort of stuff. But, they do say, we understand that shooting can be beneficial for conservation, that it's got important economically and so on and so forth. So it's not a sort of direct kind of we're coming for you approach as far as I can see. but it obviously predictably.
I don't want to jump to their defence, but from one point of view, you can understand it, and you guys have mentioned, avian influenza and different diseases that the birds can carry. The fact that you've got cattle passports isn't a limiting factor on what you can farm with that. The fact you have to do an annual inventory for your sheep and goats and keep a flock register and stuff like that it's not necessarily indicating a restriction on what you can do. If I'm optimistically looking at it, it's looking for so that they have a more transparent view of what is out there.
Yes.
Can we look at it that way rather than?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Sam. I think the potential danger, and I think where some of the organisations are feeling a little alarmed. If I can, I'll just read. There's a little bit from Countryside Alliance. In order to license something, you first have to prohibit it, and then, when there is the slightest excuse, the withdrawal of licenses implements a ban. Natural England is doing exactly this around a number of English special protection areas, at the moment using avian influenza as justification. The level of DEFRA's ignorance of the realities of game shooting in the countryside is exposed by its suggestion that shoots are managed primarily for recreation in the same way as golf courses. There seems to be no awareness that game shooting is a complementary activity to agriculture, not a competitive one. So, I think that's kind of where they're looking at it. But I'd take your point.
I'd say game shooting is more complementary to agriculture than a golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're farming rabbits in Cornwall.
Yeah.
But I take your point. But the risk is if it's banned, we've seen with the SPAs, very few actually had their license granted, and the fear is that if there is this body of people within the back rooms of government who want to see an end to shooting, making licenses harder and harder to obtain is a bit too straightforward.
Yes, I think that I can understand the concern there, but I do find that whenever something like this comes out, some of the language around it, I think, is overblown. I've seen it described by various worthies and worthy organisations as a direct attack on the shooting sector, war on the countryside, someone comparing
a full frontal assault,
desperate to pick a fight, all this sort of stuff. And I don't really think that. It might be short-sighted, it might be coming from a place of ignorance, but I don't think that there's this sort of
slightly misinformed, definitely, but I don't see it as being malicious.
No, I don't see them sort of sitting there in Westminster rubbing their hands together going, ho, 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 we're going to stick it to that welly-booted brigade. I just don't see that as, as sort of broadly useless as our entire political class appear to be. I don't think that the government is vindictive. And I said the same thing around the family farm tax. I think it's ignorance rather than malice, nearly always, and quite or cock up. And I think the thing to really highlight here is that a lot of this stuff, right? It's consultation, call for evidence, and even that point from the Countryside Alliance about the slightest excuse. Well, the simple answer is, don't give them an excuse.
Don't give them an excuse.
Don't give them an excuse.
Yeah, quite.
Like
100%.
I know that you guys will have listened to the interview that we did with Eddie Norfolk in the last couple of episodes, but
yes,
I clipped up a bit of it that I thought I'd just play in here because it strikes me as prescient that we recorded this, him saying this, not 3 weeks ago, and for these announcements to have hit. So I'm just going to play that in now.
We've got to get our act together, and we've got to make sure that we are linking into nature's revival. And every shoot can be good for the environment, can be good for a species recovery. You can find something on your estate which you can do well. And we've got to do that, because unless governments see that we are positive for nature, unless the word shooting estate is synonymous with nature's revival in 5-10 years' time, we're going to lose our sport. I'm absolutely no doubt about that. And I'm very, very worried about that. And I've spoken to government ministers about that. We've got to get our act together. Honestly, unless shoots can get their act together pronto, we will lose shooting. The shooting community has got to come together and realize the urgency of this. And we've all got to fall into line. And then we may have a future for the sport we love and for the country we adore. But we've got to get our act together, and we've got to start not next year. We've got to start now, tomorrow.
So there's Eddie. And
Yes.
he's absolutely right, is he not?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And here's a question, chaps. A question that really none of us want to ask. And if the spotlight was put on on every shoot in the country tomorrow, would we all be proud of what it shows? Are we 100% confident that we are doing the right thing? And I think what, for me, I got from that and from listening to His Grace was that I would like to set a challenge to all shoots up and down the country of get a beekeeper in. The talk that you guys had about having bees and the pollinators, that is something so easy and very, very, you can hide it away. But the benefits of running bees, Laura runs a few hives and she's got a little apiary. Why don't every shoot in the country just put a small area of their land down to bees? I think it's a great one.
It's
and
a really
it
nice
starts
idea.
showing, it starts building it from grassroots up. Excuse the pun.
Well,
But,
I think, it sort of doesn't matter if it's bees or bats or whatever, right?
Doesn't matter.
Bluebells.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the point is, and I do sort of think, for a long time, you see it a lot, people pointing the finger at Basque or the Countryside Lions or whoever it might be, saying they're not doing enough. And I would turn that round and say, actually, I think it's time that we as individual shooters, as individual countrymen and women, took the responsibility upon ourselves. And, one of the things I think that's always sort of slightly frustrated me is that, shooting is broadly a small c conservative world. And a lot of those small c conservative values involve, the right to live your life the way you think it should be lived and to not be told what to do by the man and so on and so forth. But with rights come responsibilities and duties. And I think that if we take it upon ourselves to be whiter than white, to plant the trees, to make sure that your shoot or the syndicate that you shoot on or the places where you buy let days or any of that sort of thing, you make sure that they're whiter than white. And then if we all take that approach, I think we can't just expect the, not completely brilliantly funded organizations to do all this for us. And, if licensing does happen, then we can't afford to not be squeaky clean. And, we all take this view with our shotgun licensing. Right? We don't do the silly stuff.
Yes.
And, it's not a hard change to make, I think. And I think the other thing I would like to say on this is don't make it a culture war. Don't make it a blame game. Don't make it us and them.
Yeah.
Quite.
It's not, even though you might feel personally attacked. And it does feel like a personal attack when something that forms part of your identity is getting this sort of level of scrutiny. But the more you make it a culture war and less about the facts and the science, the easier the argument is.
With a culture war, you then also get, people within our community arguing with each other, which isn't going to get us forward anywhere, is it? We've seen it with the, non-toxic ammunition regulations recently, and I completely agree with you, George. And there are people posting on social media about these things that affect us who would be far better to redirect those efforts into actually maybe doing the small actions you speak of, going out, engaging with locals, lobbying MPs, inviting people to get involved or eat game and things like that, rather than just going, oh, the government hates us and wants to stop us doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem with the infighting is that, people then start getting belligerent. And I think it's one thing we need to change. We were talking with Marcus Janssen over on Shoot Hub. And Gemma always asked at the end, what would be the one thing on pain of death you'd do to change shooting? And I think he hit the nail on the head. He said social media. And I think we have to to your point, Sam, stop shouting at each other on social media because it's idiocy and doesn't get you anywhere. But I think we also need to stop putting pictures of 300 shot pigeons and, groaning game carts, or, tidy up after yourself and don't allow that brace of duck to be found by the side of the road. And, it's all about keeping house and having pride in what you do and being able to stand by it.
Yeah.
Because everybody who's been pigeon shooting knows what 300 dead pigeons look like. And if you showed a field of wheat that was growing successfully because you'd shot 300 pigeons, that's a far more powerful story for everybody to look at, shooting and non-shooting, than a pile of dead birds. Because for me, if I see a pile of dead birds, so what?
Here's one for you then with the pigeons. Do you think a picture, and it may look a little bit gruesome to some people, but I find it fascinating, a picture of a pigeon you've shot, its crop full of wheat or peas or beans or anything like that, because then you can almost say, right, this pigeon has consumed X amount of grams today, times that by X amount of pigeons, and you can actually then put a value on crop loss and the reason why you're doing it, apart from the fact that pigeon on toast is actually really quite nice.
It is bloody good. I think that sort of thing can be done in a slightly more controlled environment. I think if you have, a school group come along or something like that, you can do it face to face. But I think putting it out there on social media leaves it open to too broad interpretation.
Yeah. Yes. And, you do have to also take into account the fact that, and I say this without any sense of sort of judgment, but that a lot of people don't know a pigeon from a partridge. And so particularly with pigeons, you show a great heap of dead pigeons. To most people's eyes, they're not seeing an agricultural pest. They're not seeing crop protection. No. They're seeing dead animals. And actually, in their minds, it might as well be a grouse or whatever. And the number of posts that you see that have that sort of comment, you're opening yourself up to people not getting the nuances of what's going on.
Yeah. A lot of people you'd say to a pigeon, they'd think immediately probably of what we'd say as a feral pigeon that you'd find in the high street picking up empty McDonald's wrappers, rather than the wood pigeon that we see out in the countryside.
Exactly.
So I wanted to go and get a bit of context on this one, and I went in on Facebook. I try and avoid Facebook. I looked at some of the anti-groups, and there's an anti-group called Protect the Wild.
Well, it's not a group. I think it's a bloke in a flat in London, isn't it? Protect the Wild.
I'm not going to point, but whatever he is, he's got a following, and then from that, it doesn't matter what you're putting out there. Those guys are so militant and so passionate about their role in saving things. When they see 100 spelt out in pigeons, that gets hammered. It doesn't matter if you're, they're trying to protect Ganners, is it up in Scotland?
Yes,
Ganners, Ganners,
Ganners,
and that's it. And then from that, it doesn't matter if it's fox hunting. It doesn't matter if it's netting in a suburban area or in a city area of pigeons around famous sites. They're on it. And how are we being seen? That little 4x5. We've got to be really, really careful. You just pull it back. It's great for us.
I think that the issue there is that those people who are vociferous about it, nothing will change their minds. But I've started seeing on some of the bird appreciation sites that there's a mood now, bizarrely, for people to start calling predatory birds cruel. And I've seen it quite a lot, where people are putting pictures of sparrowhawks up, and there's people are commenting, "Oh, those are cruel. They kill the pretty little songbird." So there is a mountain of knowledge that we need to climb. But I think coming back to what George's best friend Eddie said, that's really the nub of it, isn't it? If we don't take this firmly by the balls and get our house in order, it should be a case that we say, well, okay, fine. Back in the day, you didn't need a license to drive a car. You just drove a car. Then licenses came in and we had to pass tests and perform certain functions and keep our paperwork up to date to be allowed the privilege of driving a car. Well, if shoots are going to go the same way, first of all, we need to be, through the organizations and through our own actions, at the table when the rules are being written.
100%.
And we also need to be in a position where our house is in order, that actually, to complete your license, should it go that route, all you're doing is transcribing data you already hold into a government form.
Yeah.
Yes. But also, stick to the metaphorical speed limit, wear the metaphorical seatbelt. That's it's a lovely analogy, that, Avian. I really like it.
But also shout about the good that we're doing in the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And let's be honest, lads, it's we're trying to defend a standard that we can only set for ourselves. And right now that's not consistent enough.
We need to push onto the front foot, don't we? Eddie said about us being on the back foot. If we can get on the front foot and we can really advocate what we do, and I'm talking from grassroots level, right? Through to shoot owners, people who go out and pop a couple pigeons, everyone involved in it needs to shout about it, all the good that's going on, and then suddenly we're on the front foot, and we're not having this constant battle where we need to defend ourselves and we're saying, it's because the Labour government hate us, which I don't think is the case.
You know what we need to be getting out there is just talking about community. You've
won the game.
You've already won that one, Jake. You can't win it a second time.
Oh, yeah.
But what I would like to see, I think, here's another challenge. For every photo that you post of you having a nice day out in the field, show me some practical hands-on conservation that you're doing. Show me the hedges that you've been laying, or the plantation that you've put in, or the owl boxes you're putting up, or whatever it is. Right?
Yeah, good
because
shout.
it's all happening. It's just that we don't think people want to see it as much as they want to see us, grinning at the end of a drive, clutching a glass of sparkling wine.
100%. And I've completely forgotten. We've just put our owl boxes up at work. And nothing in them at the moment, but I will keep you updated, because the barn owls fly in between the two big main paddocks by the manor house here.
Fantastic.
And they're empty at the moment, but I'm going to keep you updated. That's a cracking idea. And it's something which I know Gemma and Peter are thinking about as well, is putting owl boxes up. So yes, I'm good. What a great idea. I'm on it. I like that a lot.
And I think, going back to my wonderful day in the dark sploshing around with very, very professional people looking for snipe, start keeping some records.
Yeah.
When we were talking with Marcus about the Schoeffel Awards, it was something fundamental that all of their judges look for is data. Can you prove that what you do has a beneficial effect? And, he was saying it can be as simple as just a little notebook or a note in your diary. I saw these many yellowhammers, or today we saw some bullfinch, or, we've cleared a bit of the pond and we've got ducks on it, right the way up to, the fully detailed scientific research work that the likes of Andrew and Blevin are doing, and anywhere in between. And I think to Jake's point, talk about it positively. If you can say, if somebody says, you shoot, and you go, well, yes, we do, but that, we only do it 6 times a year, and, it's a social thing and we go out. But actually, what we've got on our little bit of ground now is this, that, and the other. Or we've, first time in years, we've got cowslips on the verges. And, if we can put our house in order to that extent and talk more about that and get politicians down and invite the school across. I mean, I do my nesting bird survey with BTO, and I've invited 3 of the fellow record keepers to come down and have a look at the improvements we made on the farm, and they can't wait to come and see if they can spot the system.
Well, and there's a huge difference between going up to somebody and saying, there's more curlew here than there was 5 years ago, and going up to somebody and saying, right, in 2020 there were this many, in 2021 there were this many, in 2022 there were this many. So you're going in with evidence rather than just a story, as it were.
So I think, to your point, George, I think all the organizations need our continued support, because I think in different ways, they are tackling different areas of the the conversation. And in some ways, we should leave it to their expertise to look at the lobbying, the scientific background, the welfare and support issues. And for us as individuals, as shooters, to support them to do that and to think before we type and be measured about how reactionary we are, and to not run around with our hair on fire and call everybody C words, and it's all doom and gloom. I mean, there was one comment I saw on response to one of the, I think it was the GWCT initial comment on it, and it's a misquote from back along, but this government uses public consultations as a drunk uses lampposts for support rather than for illumination. So I think if we take that attitude, let's be involved in that conversation. If they're looking at public consultations, don't forget we are part of the public.
Yeah.
And we need to empower the people doing this work to put that positive message across on our behalf and to back it up with our actions, that if they say we're doing good for the environment, if anyone looks under the stone, we bloody well are.
Yes. Just I've just had a flashback to last night and a conversation I was having with Hugo the Game Glutton on the subject of personal responsibility. So he told me that he'd done the maths and that he'd worked out that if everyone who shoots in the UK ate 60 pheasants a year, there would be no game to sell to game dealers.
That's amazing.
Now, 60 sounds like quite a lot, but how often do you eat chicken?
Yeah.
And one pheasant does a family of 2. So I think,
Well, I think we did a nerd, didn't we, George, that the average person in the UK eats 13 chickens a year?
Yes.
But actually, if you look at Hugo's figures, 60 sounds an awful lot. But as you were just saying, a oven-ready chicken is the equivalent to what? Possibly 2.5 pheasants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've got a family, let's say you've got a family of 4.
And you're the only one in that family that shoots.
Your 13 chickens and the other 3 13 chickens, we're up to nearly 50 chickens equivalent. So actually, if you only replace chicken every other time with pheasant, you're getting pretty close to your 60 there and then, aren't you?
But if you shoot 8 days a season, you should all be taking a brace home. Well, if you took 3 brace home, then all of a sudden, on every shoot, all of a sudden you're up there. You're doing 8 days. You're taking, let's say you take 3 brace home each. You take a 4th. You take some duck as well. All of a sudden, you're not too far from that 60.
Bloody hell, Jake,
that's
come
kind
on,
of my point.
You've seen me shoot. I'll have to take some of your braces home, I think.
You'll have to take my boots as well, buddy, because I can't shoot.
But I think these numbers are brilliant. When you break them down to an individual level, it makes the hill far less mountainous to climb. I think the other issue that really comes out of this is everybody involved in shooting, whether it's people like me on a tiny little DIY or some of the bigger operations. They just need to look very closely and very carefully at how they are managing their release numbers.
I think release numbers is the big one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the more I'm discovering talking to people who really know what they're on about, if you manage the ground the shoot is on better, your returns will increase, which means that the birds you need to release to achieve the aims of the shoot go down. Therefore, the impact or perceived impact on the ground you're on should become almost negligible.
Yeah.
There will always be an impact, but it is easier then to balance it with the other habitat restoration and improvements you're doing.
And let's face it, from a commercial point of view, the less poults you've got to buy, because with energy prices and other factors this year, they're not going to be cheap things to rear, are they?
Yeah.
And therefore, they're not going to be cheap things to sell.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
Well, I think that the really key thing about what you've just said there, Avian, is that the stuff that you need to do to make your shoot a nice place for pheasants to hang around in and to hold in is the same stuff that you need to do to make it a nice place for everything else to be. So you're in doing the right thing, you're improving your shoot. and that's the really key message there. So that's quite a positive moment to end on, I think. So yes, we did get a bit serious, but I think, in a week with all that news in, we did have to cover that. So yes, I hope that's made a lot of sense to people. But before we go, all that remains for me to say is there is a final reminder that you can get your hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by sending us your unpopular opinions, or sharing your forgotten drives, or your podcast suggestions, or challenging Avian to make some other alcoholic beverage. Just drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we read it out in the next episode, we will send you some garters. If you have enjoyed this episode, or our recent two-parter with the Duke of Norfolk, or any of our other episodes for that matter, do follow us on your podcast platform of choice, leave a review or a rating, or best of all, share us on social media, or send a link to a friend with a recommendation. Chris and I are going to be back next week with the first part of our two-part interview with Matt Ridley, owner of the estate that won this year's Purdy Award, somewhere where they are doing all of the good things that we've just been talking about. Even though I say it myself, it is a really great episode, so make sure that you join us for that. But for now, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.